Hello there, and welcome to the Palm and Pine Podcast. The boys are coming to you from their hidden camp, set deep in the Florida woods on the banks of the mystic Suwannee River. So let's take a moment and hear from the boys of old Florida.
All right, welcome back to the Palm and Pine Podcast. I got the professor here with me, and Professor Barlow and I are going to be going on an expedition today, right? It's going to be about a 6 to 7 mile jaunt by the time we get completed today, and this is going to be interesting. So, as the professor and I tend to do, we love to study Florida history and read back. Well, we are not historians, but we do enjoy it. So I guess that would be amateur historians. But as of late, I have spent quite a bit of time reading William Bartram, and William Bartram is a naturalist, of course, and which, as a wildlife biologist, that's right down my alley. So naturally. So I've been reading quite a bit of his writings and his travels. And he did an expedition himself down here to Florida in the year, he came I think he came more than once, but 1774. Mm-hmm. So that would be, if my math is correct, Douglas, you correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that's 200.
I'm not good with easy math.
Yeah, easy math, right. I think that's 251 years
Sounds
ago.
about right.
Yeah, and so it would have been in June. So he would have got a good dose of Florida.
Absolutely.
These people that come to Florida, and them snowbirds, and they come down here in the winter, they kind of get a taste.
Before the solstice or after?
I'm not sure the exact date in June that he was here.
Important.
Yeah. But still, needless to say, he got a little dose of Florida.
Yeah.
And so he basically came down. I think he came down by boat to Amelia Island, and then by boat up St. John's River. Then trekked on over to the Paynes Prairie area, which is south of Gainesville. There, basically Micanopy. Met with a great Seminole chief there. Spent some time there, rummaging around. Then he got with a party and trekked over to our neck of the woods. So he basically left Paynes Prairie, spent a night near present-day Kanapaha Gardens, and then basically followed a similar route across as State Road 24, going through present-day Bronson, and then made it over here to Chiefland, just south of Chiefland, and spent the night near Long Pond, where, with much ferocity, the mosquitoes worked on them overnight. If you haven't read
They forgot their mosquito net.
Yes.
If you have been there, done that.
If you have not read his writings, you would enjoy. He is very descriptive, and he was also a great artist. So there's lots of drawings as well. So he would draw a picture of the Seminole chief, and then all the plants. He was collecting plants, right? So anyway, a lot of very good information. Really, again, one of the last, I would say, Europeans to really see natural Florida before it was sort of raped and pillaged. But anyway, so he spends the night, and that's where our story picks up today.
Right.
Okay, so he spends the night at Long Pond. Then the goal of this party he was with was to reach the great trading hub of Talahasochte. Right there, yeah. Talahasochte. I don't know if they had a street sign back then.
We're going to go put that up today.
Yeah. Today our goal is to put up the sign of Talahasochte. So their goal was to reach that trading hub. Now that was a major trading hub with the Spanish and the Seminole. And they had used it before, but there was a rift that involved a murder of Mr. McGee. Now he was a trader, I think. Now, again, I'm not verifying everything I'm telling is exactly right because I'm not a historian, but it's just based on my reading. So there was kind of a fault. They'd kind of have a falling out with the Seminoles there. So they were trying to reunite, get things back going again because it was such a vital trading hub. And so they spent the night at Long Pond and then headed to Talahasochte. Now, here's the interesting thing to me. He describes the biggest longleaf pine he'd ever seen in an open savanna, widely spaced longleaf. That's when he left basically Long Pond, headed this away where Professor Barlow and I sit right now,
Right.
until they saw a grove of magnolia and mesic hardwood, and they dropped off into that, and then made it to the Suwannee River and the town of Talahasochte. And I'm going to read a couple of excerpts. I've got
great.
it pulled up. You can get this online. It's actually free, his writings, at Gutenberg.org. So you can read all of this. But I'm gonna read.
He's going to describe the camp.
Yes.
Okay.
So I'm going to read some of the what he saw. Now, he had gotten there to Talahasochte, and then got in a canoe and went and visited Manatee Springs here in the area. And then one day went across to the other side, the Dixie County side of the river, and ventured about 8 or 9 miles in Dixie County area too, and came back.
Okay.
So he spent several days, at least 3 days from what I can interpret, right here in this area. So anyway, he says this was on the third day. They'd been out, exploring, and they come back, and he says, on our arrival at the trading house, Talahasochte, our chief was visited by the head men of the town, when instantly the White King's arrival, this was the chief, the main leader, he was called White King. His arrival in town was announced. A messenger had before been sent in to prepare a feast, the king and his retinue having killed several bears. A fire is now kindled in the area of the public square. The royal standard was displayed, and the drum beat to give notice to the town of the royal feast. The ribs and choice pieces of the 3 great fat bears, already well barbecued or broiled, were brought to the banqueting house in the square with hot bread and honeyed water for drink. When the feast was over in the square, where only the chiefs and warriors were admitted with the white people, the chief priest, attended by slaves, came with baskets and carried off the remainder of the victuals, which were distributed amongst the families of the town, so the leftovers.
Right.
The king then withdrew, repairing to the council house in the square, whither the chiefs and warriors, old and young, and such of the whites as chose, repaired also. The king, war chief, and several ancient chiefs and warriors were seated on the royal cabins. The rest of the head men and warriors, old and young, sat on the cabins on the right hand of the kings. The cabins or seats on the left and on the same elevation are always assigned for the white people, Indians of other towns, and such of their own people as chosen. Our chief, with the rest of the white people in town, took their seats according to order. Tobacco and pipes were brought. The calumet, which is a peace pipe, was lighted and smoked, circulating according to the usual forms and ceremony.
Wow.
And afterwards, black drink, which is yaupon tea, I believe, concluded the feast. The king conversed, drank cassine, and associated familiarity with his people and with us. After the public entertainment was over, the young people began their music and dancing in the square, whither the young of both sexes repaired, as well as the old and middle age. This frolic continued all night. So there was a bit of frolicking. I'm kind of excited to get to Talahasochte. So a lot of, sounds like a nice place.
It's a lot more that's going on in the area today. It's kind of a town of pretty good size there.
Yeah. All right, let me see where I'm at here and pick up. The White King of Talahasochte is a middle-aged man of moderate stature, and though of a lofty and majestic countenance and deportment, yet I am convinced this dignity, which really seems graceful, is not the effect of vain supercilious pride, for his smiling countenance and his cheerful familiarity bespeak magnanimity and benignity. Next, a council and treaty was held. They requested to have a trading house again established in the town. This is where they want, hey, let's reestablish the trading house, assuring us that every possible means should constantly be pursued to prevent any disturbance in future on their part. So this is the Seminoles saying, hey, no more.
After they had a falling out.
Yes, so they're kind of repairing the relationships.
Right.
They informed us that the murderers of Mr. McGee and his associates were to be put to death, and that 2 of them were already shot, and they were in pursuit of the 3rd. So they're tracking that last guy down, and they're going to kill him. Our chief trader in answer informed them that the reestablishment of friendship and trade was the chief object of this visit, and that he was happy to find his old friends of Talahasochte in the same good disposition as they ever were towards him and the white people, that it was with his to trade with them, and that he was now come to collect his pack horses to bring them goods. The king and the chiefs, having been already acquainted with my business and pursuits among them, received me very kindly. So they received Bartram very kindly. The king in particular complimented Bartram, me, saying that I was as one of his own children or people, and should be protected accordingly while I remain with them, adding, our whole country is before you, where you may range about you at your pleasure, gathering physic, plants, and flowers, and every other production. Thus the treaty terminated friendly and peaceable. So they accomplished their goal, reestablished the treaty. Okay, so what I'm going to read next is a description of Talahasochte by William Bartram.
Okay.
And so he's going to describe it. So he left Long Pond, and he was on a much spirited Seminole horse. You and I will be on foot. The good professor and I will be on foot today. But we're not going as far as him. But anyway, he came across that longleaf savanna, dropped down into the grove of magnolia grandiflora, and then went on to the town of Talahasochte. And as he arrived, here's kind of the description of that. The town is delightfully situated on the elevated east banks of the river, the Levy County side, the ground level to near the river, when it descends suddenly to the water. I suppose the perpendicular elevation of the ground may be 20 or 30 feet, so very high bank. There are near 30 habitations, houses, constructed after the mode of Cuscawilla, which is present-day Micanopy. But here is a more spacious and neat council house, so big main house for the leader. These Indians have large, handsome canoes, which they form out of the trunks of cypress trees, some of them commodious enough to accommodate 20 or 30 warriors. In these large canoes, they descend the river on trading and hunting expeditions to the seacoast, neighboring islands and keys, quite to the point of Florida, and sometimes cross the Gulf, extending their navigations to the Bahama Islands and even to Cuba. A crew of these adventurers had just arrived back, having returned from Cuba just a few days before our arrival, with a cargo of spirituous liquors, coffee, sugar, and tobacco. One of them politely presented me with a choice piece of tobacco, which he told me he had received from the governor of Cuba. They deal in the way of barter, carrying with them deer skins, furs, dry fish, beeswax, honey, bear's oil, and some other articles, that they say the Spaniards receive them very friendly and treat them with the best spirituous liquors. The Spaniards of Cuba likewise trade here or at St. Mark's and other seaports on the west coast of the Isthmus in small sloops. particularly at the Bay of Kalos, where are excellent fishing banks and grounds, not far from which is a considerable town of the Seminoles. Blah, 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 blah. And then they return with their cargoes to Cuba. So two-way trade. They go to Cuba, and the Spaniards come up here.
So they got bear oil, beeswax. I wonder if they cultivated the bees like we do today.
Must have, yeah. They must have gathered that honey or whatever here. So, you know, and I got to thinking about it,
They
Doug.
had domesticated hives of some sort, maybe.
You know, paddling a canoe from here to Cuba. What an incredible journey. Right. However, if I had to do that for coffee, I think
you might do it, right?
you know, out here, if I'd been out here in these woods long enough, right? And I think for some folks, spirituous liquor would have been a motivation, but for me,
think the liquor wouldn't have made the trip back.
right. You'd think the canoe might have got lost on the way back. It might not have been a straight line, you know, once you got the spirits.
They knew better than to come back with no liquor.
Right. Old white chief, white king.
Old chief had probably gotten on that butt before about that, boys.
Yeah, old white king. So our goal today, our goal is not to reestablish trade at Talahasochte.
And not to get spirituous liquor.
And not to get, or, you know, we got our coffee here, so we don't even need to get coffee. But we're going to try to find the trading post of Talahasochte. Which now I'm going to switch over to another publication. Now this is the Florida Museum of Natural History, and I'm going to read one more description here of the town of Talahasochte.
Okay, all right.
And let's see here.
From about the same time period.
This is from William Bartram. This is his travels. They've just kind of, you know, made it a little easier to read, maybe.
Bartram.
Yeah, William Bartram. Okay, so I'm going to read one more excerpt. This is again from Florida Museum of Natural History, University of Florida. So this is kind of, again, William Bartram's travels
off their
here.
Website?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and I'll put all the links for all the references for today. I'll put all the links in the description of this podcast. So yeah, just drill down there if you want to dig into any of this. It's I think you'll find it very interesting. Again, I just enjoy his writing. But let me tell you a little bit about what he described again, this area and Talahasochte. Having camped, so he had left Paynes Prairie. He basically followed Highway 24, present day, and you know, through Bronson and then on to Chiefland and then finally to Talahasochte. Having camped near the Big or Little Wakasasa River, Bartram's group traveled to Long Pond, 2 miles south of Chiefland. So that's where he camped the next night. Their destination, their final destination, the store at Talahasochte, has been identified with a bluff 6 miles upstream from Manatee Springs. There at Manatee Springs, Bartram described the boil of the spring and accurately recorded eruptions every 30 seconds. Bartram observed manatee bones on the banks where the Indians had cleaned and skinned the manatee, which they said was of great table fare. And Bartram described the Suwannee River as the most beautiful river he had ever seen. And he went over again. He crossed over to the Dixie County side of the river and proceeded north along the river 8 or 9 miles on the Dixie County side as well, and up towards present day Old Town, before then returning back to Talahasochte, and that's when the White King finally, they had to wait for several days for the White King to get back. He was on a trip. And so they that's
as kings do.
Yeah. So that was, a good thing because it kept Bartram here for a few days, and so he explored and got to see Manatee Springs, which he enjoyed all of this. I mean, he writes with great glee about having the time here to explore it. So anyway, so what I did Doug, is I just decided I'm going to take them for their word, right?
Right.
So I got on Google Earth, and I'll show some excerpts of this, and I just said, okay, 6 miles upstream from Manatee Springs, right?
Right.
So that's what I did. I measured it out. Now, what amazes me is Bartram didn't have Google Earth.
No.
And all this stuff, and But anyway,
I wonder how they measured distance.
yeah, how they knew, right? Yeah, because
he
he puts in all his writings miles. We paddled 4 miles, or we did this many miles. But anyway, today it's recognized as the location of Talahasochte, 6 miles upstream from Manatee Springs. So again, I marked it on the map. We're going to go there. It's within the Andrews State Wildlife Management Area. This is woods. It's not like you. Now, we could have took your ski nautique, Doug, or your bass boat, and just easily just went down the river right to this spot.
Which I don't have.
Now, but I am not one to take the easy way out. Okay. So we're going to do this just like William Bartram, minus the spirit.
Y'all out there should know the professor does not own a fancy boat.
Right. Which explains why the professor and I are alone out here in the woods.
I'm driving my Chevrolet to teach kids driving BMWs.
Yeah, that's the way the world works. Oh my goodness. So yes.
Well, we're going to walk there. Yes.
So we're going to walk there again. It's going to be
for you anyway.
From our hidden lair. It's a direct walk through the wilderness, and it'll be a round trip of 6 to 7 miles by the time the day is complete. And then one of his days that William Bartram was there at Talahasochte, staying at Talahasochte, he had gotten the loan of a canoe, one of the great Cypress canoes, and went downstream to Manatee. Okay. So he went into Manatee Springs by canoe, and then came back to Talahasochte. Paddled back, yeah.
So hard work.
So that could be part 2 of this episode, as we could canoe from present day Talahasochte up into Manatee Springs,
that would be a great trip.
Just to replicate what he had actually done and wrote about. But yeah, so our goal today, we're going to go to that spot, see if there's a frolicking party.
There won't be.
There won't be. But we are going to go, and if you want, we'll erect this sign at the actual site of Talahasochte. So this is going to be a field trip, so come along with us, and we'll see you in Talahasochte. All right, Douglas, we've started our journey to the fabled lost trading hub of Talahasochte. And one of the interesting things you're going to see on this little trip that we're making, this trek, is we are going to pass through 3 different habitats or ecotones. Right now, here on our homestead, we are on a remnant of the longleaf pine savanna that Bartram described, and we're working very diligently and to restore that longleaf pine here on our place. And you can kind of see some of that work here before us, where we've planted over 30,000 longleaf pine. And so this is what you would call high pine habitat. It would have had wiregrass, very widely spaced longleaf, mature 3 to 4 to 500-year-old trees when William Bartram came through. And it would have been very easy travel, Doug, across this, particularly on his spirited Seminole horse that he was riding. So it would have been an easy ride on his horse from Long Pond across this huge, he said some of the largest longleaf pine he'd ever seen in his life. Of course, all of that got cut and timbered within probably 100 years of him traveling through here. But we've got a little patch of it here that we're trying to restore, and very high, dry, sandy soil. And so that's the first habitat we walk through. All right, so we're still walking through what would have been that ancient longleaf pine, high pine savanna. And as we get closer to the river, elevation will drop a little bit, and we'll get into that magnolia forest that Bartram talked about, kind of a mesic hardwood forest. And only maybe another quarter mile to go, and we'll get in and we'll see that habitat change. This is a portion of it right here that the state is working to restore the longleaf. Due to lack of fire, it's changed, and a lot of oaks, as you see, have come in. But they're trying. They've replanted some longleaf in here and trying to restore it. So, okay, so this is a grave site here, and I'll look up the details on this site. I believe it was an infant or a young person. We're right on the back side of the old Randall Owens farm. And we knew Randall Owens when we were young children, both Doug and I, and remember going to visit with him. But I believe, I'll look up the name on this and put it into the video. And we'll continue our trek onward to the fabled lost Seminole trading hub, the city of Talahasochte. And I did go online and look up that burial site, and online it is recorded as the Infant Owens burial site. Okay, we're still passing through this longleaf pine habitat. Here's a good specimen. So Doug, if you could imagine, you know, there wouldn't have been all these thick oaks and underbrush due to fire. And this is a good example of this is what you would call second growth longleaf. So this is from the original stock.
Now, this is a lot like the woods looked like when we moved here.
Yeah, we thought it was beautiful, and it is, but it certainly was not representative of what was here before the European expansion. But one thing, look at this longleaf, Doug. These longleaf can become 300-400 years old. And as they get older, and I can tell this is an older one because they develop into what's called a flat top. And you see how it's got those, it's kind of horizontal branches. And so that's indicative of a very, very old longleaf. So definitely over 200 years old, I would assume, because of that flat top characteristic. But yeah, due to a loss, mainly the main mechanism was fire that maintained that longleaf habitat. And once all the big trees were cut out, and then fire was not allowed to be on the landscape, then your non-fire species, like all of this oak, is going to take over, and it actually prevents fire. It would be very, very difficult to get a fire to travel through here. It's very shaded, makes it a little more moist. So all the fire has been removed. But you can still see vestiges of that longleaf pine habitat hanging on. A few longleaf interspersed in here. Okay, onwards. I think we're getting closer, Doug.
I think so.
To Talahasochte. Okay, we're still onwards to Talahasochte, and we've dropped down in elevation, and we're now getting into that mesic hardwood, picking up, you know, gum trees, sweet gum, magnolia, and old Mr. William Bartram. He described all this. And there goes one of the wild turkey running in front of us. I don't know if that got on video, caught a ways up ahead, but he said the area was teeming with deer, bear, and wild turkey. And again, gave a very, very interesting, very vivid description of this area. And again, we're retracing his steps on the way into Talahasochte. Okay, so we're continuing deep into the Magnolia grandiflora forest here and entering Maple Loop. Closer and closer to the site of Talahasochte. You know, Professor Barlow, when you begin any great trek,
yes,
at the beginning, there's always very high morale.
Right.
Morale is high. Morale still remains
Now
high.
we're fading fast.
But the reality of our chosen venture is beginning to sink into the
crew
team.
is beginning to quarrel.
There's beginning to be unrest amongst the crew.
There might be a mutiny.
There could be a mutiny. But no, it's a gorgeous hike so far, and just really beautiful. And again, now we're kind of more in that music hammock. A lot of hickory, a lot of magnolia, water oak, all those kind of things, holly. Just a gorgeous spring day. We've been blessed with just beautiful temperatures. So a very enjoyable little trek. Picking up some red maple and getting closer and closer down here to Talahasochte.
This kind of reminds me of
Okay, Douglas, we've made it to the Suwannee River. Here where we're in the vicinity. We're getting very close to the fabled Great Seminole trading post of Talahasochte. And we've got these high banks. We'll slip up here to this bank. And these high banks that Bartram described. Now he said 20 to 30 feet above the river. Wow. I think he's pretty much right on, Douglas. What do you think?
Yep, it's a good 20.
It's definitely a good 20 feet up above the river. Gorgeous. All right, so we're going to find that point, that 6 miles upstream, and see if we see any remnants of Talahasochte. Okay, we've reached the site of the lost Seminole city of Talahasochte, 6 miles upstream from Manatee Springs. Beautiful site. We're just kind of checking out this whole area here. Very high bank, as Bartram described. Gopher tortoise burrow. I was hoping they would have the peace pipe lit when we arrived, Doug, and the young Seminole princess girls frolicking. Would have launched their canoes here along the river to head to Cuba. Imagine paddling to Cuba on your canoe.
Right.
Good gracious. Okay, Douglas, we have reached the location, or the, as best as we can determine, location of Talahasochte, the lost trading hub of the Seminole.
Right.
And no frolicking young Seminole maidens.
Nothing here at all.
No peace pipe.
But there is a very high bluff, as they described.
Yeah, just as he described. You got that good 20 to 30 foot bluff, and we got some aerial views with the drone, so we'll throw some of that in this as well, so you get a kind of an overhead view and a shot of the river But yeah, beautiful, beautiful hike, beautiful location. And I am not going to leave my sign. I'll be taking that with me. But yeah, for today, we have marked this out and proclaimed this spot Talahasochte. Finally, 251 years later.
Right.
All right. Now we got to walk back.
Yeah.
Okay, there might be
We're fat. We can stand it.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt us to do a little walking. And we're going to maybe do a part 2 because one of the days that Bartram was here, they got a canoe loaned to them by the friendly Seminole, and then they paddled downstream, that 6 miles from here, to Manatee Springs. And so Doug and I will perhaps replicate that portion of the trip on another episode.
Right.
All right. To conclude today's podcast episode, we're going to leave off with some drone footage that we took while we were exploring the area there at Talahasochte. So I encourage you to go to our YouTube page. Our YouTube page is at Palm and Pine Podcast, so you could watch today's episode. But as that drone footage reels on by, for our listeners, I thought I would read some passages directly from William Bartram Travels, the Travels of William Bartram. And I'm going to pick up reading for the day that they left Long Pond, south of Chiefland, and ventured to Talahasochte. So this is as they're leaving Long Pond. We next entered a vast forest of the most stately pine trees that can be imagined, planted by nature at a moderate distance on a level grassy plain enameled with a variety of flowering shrubs. This sublime forest continued 5 or 6 miles when we came to dark groves of oaks, magnolias, red bays, mulberries, etc., through which, proceeding near a mile, we entered open fields and arrived at the town of Talahasochte on the banks of the Little St. Juan, which is the Suwannee River. The river may, with singular propriety, be termed the Pellucid River. The waters are the clearest and purest of any river I've ever saw, transmitting distinctly the natural form and appearance of the objects moving in the transparent floods, or reposing on the silvery bed, with the finny inhabitants sporting in its gently flowing stream. The river at the town is about 200 yards over and 15 or 20 feet in depth. The great swamp and lake Oquafenago is said to be its source, which is about 100 miles by land north of this place, which would give the river a course of near 200 miles from its source to the sea. To follow its meanders, as is in the general are rivers that run any considerable distance through the country to the sea, by their windings and roving, about to find a passage through the ridges and heights at least double their distance. The Indians and traders say that this river has no branches or collateral brooks or rivers tributary to it, but that it is fed or augmented by great springs which break out through the banks. From the accounts given by them and my own observations on the country round about, it seems a probable assertion, for there was not a creek or rivulet to be seen running on the surface of the ground, from the great Alachua savanna to this river, a distance of about 70 miles, yet perhaps no part of the earth affords a greater plenty of pure, salubrious waters. The unparalleled transparency of these waters furnishes an argument for such a conjecture that amounts at least to a probability were it not confirmed by ocular demonstration. For in all the flat countries of Carolina and Florida except this isthmus, the waters of the river are in some degree turgid and have a dark hue, owing to the annual firing of the forest and plains, and afterwards the heavy rains washing the light surface of the burnt earth into rivulets, and these rivulets, running rapidly over the surface of the earth, flow into the rivers and tinge the waters the color of lye or beer, almost down to the tide near the sea-coast. But here behold how different the appearance, and how manifest the cause. For although the surface of the ground produces the same vegetable substances, the soil the same, and suffers in like manner a general conflagration and in the rains and impetuous showers, as liberally descend upon the parched surface of the ground. But the earth being so hollow and porous, these superabundant waters cannot constitute a rivulet or brook to continue any distance on its surface before they are arrested in their course and swallowed up, thence descending, are filtered through the sands and other strata of earth to the horizontal beds of porous rocks, which being composed of thin separable laminae, lying generally in obliquely horizontal directions over each other, admit these waters to pass on by gradual but constant percolation. We hope you've enjoyed today's episode of the Palm and Pine Podcast. This podcast is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be considered professional advice. The views and opinions expressed by the host or any guest are our own and do not necessarily reflect the views of any affiliates. Our opinions are just that, opinions, and are not legal or medical advice. But in our opinion, avoid lawyers and big pharma at all cost. Copyright 2025 Palm and Pine Podcast. All rights reserved. Please subscribe and share. Also, make sure to check out the video version on YouTube. The video version includes bonus content at the end you'll surely don't want to miss. If you have any ideas for future podcast episodes, or if you would like to be a guest, please reach out. We also ask for you to send pictures or any bonus content, and we'd be pleased to add it to the bonus content portion of an episode. Okay, until next time, keep it Florida, and we'll see you soon.